A man had spent years carrying the same thought. Once I get what I'm missing, I'll finally be at peace. He could never quite say what that missing thing was. He only knew he didn't have it yet. One morning, someone knocked on his door. A messenger, covered in dust, handed him a wooden box sealed with wax, along with a note from his old teacher, the one he'd left behind many years ago. The note said only this: "I am dying. Bring me this box before I go. Do not open it on the way. When you open it, you will understand what you have spent your whole life looking for." The monastery was more than 20 days away on foot. He had 20 days to cross half the country. If he failed, the answer would die with his teacher, or so he believed. He left that same afternoon, and what he discovered on that journey changed forever the way he understood the thing he'd spent years searching for. You've probably heard this idea before. Do something good and the universe gives it back. It's a nice thought, but it isn't quite true, and Buddhism explains it with far more precision than any inspirational quote ever could. There's no universe keeping score here. There's something simpler, and at the same time more demanding. What matters is your actions, the intention behind them, and the mark they leave, both outside you and within you. The man with the box knew none of this when he left his house. The first few days he walked fast, the box strapped to his back. It was heavier than it looked. At night he slept with his arms around it. Sometimes he held it to his ear, turned it carefully, trying to guess. Nothing made a sound. 7 things happened to him on that road. 7 things this tradition has been teaching by name for centuries. Let's go through them one by one. On the 4th day, he found an old man sitting by the side of the road. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. The traveler carried just enough food for his journey, rationed by the day. If he shared it, he'd come up short. He hesitated, the box resting beside him on the ground. He shared. That night, stomach half full, he slept better than the 3 nights before and couldn't explain why. The early texts can explain it. In the Velāma Sutta, the Buddha recalls a massive offering, rivers of wealth and food that bore less fruit than gestures far smaller. And the reason wasn't the size, it was the inner quality of the one giving, the one receiving, and how the gift was given. What are you really giving when, in secret, you're hoping for something back? Think about it. You help someone, and part of you is already waiting for the thank you, or the favor returned someday. And maybe that's the problem. You gave something but quietly left a bill on the table. It might not be a free gift. It can turn, without anyone agreeing to it, into a loan by another name. This tradition calls it dana, true generosity. It isn't measured by what you hand over. It's measured by what you let go of while handing it over. The man didn't share his food to sleep better that night. That's exactly why he slept better that night. What you gave last time, did you give it freely or with a hidden bill attached? Days later, at a roadside market, a merchant spotted the box and became obsessed with it. He offered money, then more money, then a horse which would get the traveler there in half the time. The man said no, and that's when he noticed something strange. He wasn't afraid of losing the box. He was afraid of losing whatever he imagined was inside it. For days, he'd been building the perfect contents in his head, the answer to everything. He was no longer carrying a box, he was carrying a promise, and the promise weighed more than the wood. And the strangest part was that no one had ever told him what was inside. He had made the promise himself. Buddhist texts use the word tanha to describe that thirst. That craving that turns a want into something we feel we need in order to be whole. And when that thirst turns into grasping, what the texts call upadana, we start carrying the very thing we wanted. There's a huge difference between wanting something and needing it to be okay. The problem was never wanting the box. The problem was needing it to be at peace. Wanting something leaves you free. Needing it ties you down. It could be a relationship, money, recognition, even a past version of yourself that no longer exists. As long as you keep needing it to feel complete, you'll carry it even when it isn't in your hands. He reached a fork in the road. The long way curved around the mountain. The short way cut through a pass people told bad stories about. He checked the sun, counted the days he had left, thought of his teacher dying, and took the short pass. Halfway up, wind cutting at his face, he realized he hadn't chosen out of courage. He'd chosen out of panic. And a path can be retraced, but the reason you took it stays with you the whole way. In the Nibbedhika Sutta, the Buddha places intention, cetana, karma in its original sense, at the very center of what he calls kamma. Looking at what you do isn't enough. You also have to look at the intention driving that action. So the important question isn't just what you're doing, it's where you're doing it from. From fear, from ego, or from something cleaner. You can tell the truth to help, or tell the truth to wound. The words are the same. What you leave behind isn't. Where are you acting from today? From fear or from something cleaner? But the road still had one more test waiting for him, one that had nothing to do with his intention and everything to do with his ability to accept what can't be controlled. The storm hit him in the pass. He lost the sack with almost all his food. He saved the box by instinct, pressing it to his chest in the rain. Soaked, shivering, he waited for the sign, the meaning that this happens for a reason. Nothing came, just rain. That was the loneliest night of the trip. No one to blame, no meaning to hold on to. And for the first time, he didn't invent a message. He'd lost the food. That was all. Now he had to decide what to do without it. Be careful with this idea because it sounds spiritual, but it can be a trap. On this channel, we've talked about that idea before, that nothing is a coincidence, that every experience has a purpose. And it's still true looking back. The problem isn't the idea. The problem is reaching for it in the heat of the moment as instant anesthesia instead of as understanding that only arrives later. The lazy version of that idea sounds like this. If you lose something, it's because the universe is preparing something better for you. Karma always gives back exactly what you did. The early texts don't promise any of that. What they teach is more honest. We don't control everything that happens. We can choose how we respond to what happens. Sometimes rain is just rain. And accepting that is wiser than inventing a message for it. When he came down the mountain, the bridge over the river was broken. The water ran brown and furious. 3 days to repair it, maybe 4. He did the math and it froze his chest. Even if the bridge was fixed in time, he'd arrive with barely a margin, or he wouldn't arrive at all. He could shout, beg, pay. None of it moved a single stone in that river. He helped repair it with his own hands, because that was the only thing that depended on him. And at night he sat by the water with nothing left to do but wait. You can control your action far more than you can control its outcome. He could carry stones, tie ropes, work from sunrise to sunset. What he couldn't do was make the river go down any sooner. This applies to work, to relationships, to anything you care about. You do your part. The outcome is no longer fully yours. The man didn't fix the bridge to arrive on time. He fixed it because it was the only thing within his hands to do. And on one of those nights, sitting by the river, he caught himself thinking, if I don't make it in time, this whole trip will have been for nothing. If I never see what's in the box, my whole life will have been an empty wait. And suddenly, he saw himself from the outside. manufacturing those sentences, and asked himself a question he'd never asked before. Who is telling this story inside my head, and why do I believe everything it says? There's an idea that shows up powerfully in this tradition. Much of suffering doesn't come from what happens. It comes from the story we build around what happens. The exact same situation, told two different ways by your own mind, can hurt twice as much, or barely at all. If someone doesn't text you back, your mind has already written 3 different movies before the reply even arrives. This tradition puts enormous weight on this, watching your thoughts before believing them completely. Having a thought doesn't mean you have to turn it into truth automatically. You can look at it before you obey it. That night the man solved nothing. The bridge was still broken, the box still sealed. The only thing that changed was the distance between him and his own voice. And sometimes that distance is the entire difference between suffering and peace. He crossed the bridge on the 4th day. He had little road left and almost no strength, but something had changed and he couldn't name it. He kept walking toward the monastery, kept wanting to see his teacher. Only the urgency no longer gnawed at him from inside. He walked fast and at peace at the same time, and until that trip he hadn't known both things could go together. That's what this tradition means by non-attachment, perhaps the most misunderstood teaching in Buddhism. The Dakkhinavibhanga Sutta teaches 4 ways of purifying an offering based on the virtue of the giver and the receiver. The highest of the 4 is when both act with a serene mind, with neither one's happiness depending on the outcome. Non-attachment, misunderstood, sounds like giving up wanting. The real thing is being able to want something without making it the condition of your happiness. The man still wanted to see his teacher. That hadn't changed. What had changed was that his peace no longer depended on getting there. Generosity, attachment, intention, interpretation, action, mind. It all comes down to one question. Can you do your part without demanding a specific outcome from life? And what are you carrying today only because you're afraid to put it down? He saw the monastery's rooftops at dawn on the 23rd day. A young monk was waiting at the gate. He didn't need to say anything. The teacher had died 9 days earlier. The man stood there, box in hand, unable to make sense of it. 9 days. Even if he'd taken the merchant's horse, even without the storm or the broken bridge, he wouldn't have made it. The numbers didn't add up, no matter how he ran them. Then the young monk handed him a second note, written in a shaking hand. If you're reading this, you already know you didn't make it in time. You were never going to. When I sent the box, I had hours left, not weeks. I didn't ask you to arrive. I asked you to walk. Open it now. The box was empty. Not an object, not a scroll, not a single word. Wood and air. And carved into the underside of the lid, one line. What you were looking for never fit in a box. Look at what you did along the way while you thought you were carrying it. The man sat down on the courtyard floor and started going back over the journey. The shared food, the promise that weighed him down, the panic at the fork in the road, the rain with no message, the bridge he fixed with his own hands, the voice in his head he stopped believing. And he realized he'd spent 23 days at peace without receiving anything in return. His teacher hadn't sent him an answer. He'd sent him a road. I'm going to step out of the story for a moment. This part is mine, not the traveler's. When I understood this teaching, I started really asking myself why I give the things I give. Do I help someone just because? Or do I help because I need to feel good about myself? Even giving love sometimes is just a way of asking for attention without saying it out loud. When I noticed this, something changed. I started understanding other people's pain better. And honestly, not everything I give today I give clean. I'm still learning to let go, just like the man with the box. And that's the true echo. Life doesn't always give back what you put in. You can't control that. But your actions, your intentions, and what you cling to keep leaving their mark on the person you're becoming. The point was never to make life give you what you want. It was to become someone who can walk in peace even when it doesn't. So now the question is yours. What box do you feel you're carrying today? And what would happen if you found out it was empty? If you want to share it, I'll be reading the comments. Thank you for walking this stretch with me today. This is Dharma, and we keep walking. See you in the next video.